Imagine wearing the same wool tunic every day for years, patched with whatever scraps you could find. But what if I told you that medieval peasants had a sophisticated clothing system designed for survival, not poverty? In this video, we'll uncover how they used materials like hemp and nettle to create garments that could withstand brutal labor and harsh weather. Imagine a textile so tough it could outlive its owner, woven from a plant most people today consider a weed. This was the reality for medieval peasants, whose clothing wasn't about fashion, but survival. They needed garments that could endure plowing fields, hauling wood, and weathering storms season after season. Fine linens and silks? Completely impractical, and often legally forbidden for the lower classes through sumptuary laws. So peasants turned to what worked: wool engineered for resilience through specific weaving and fulling techniques. They created dense fabrics that could take brutal punishment without tearing. But wool wasn't their only option. Hemp provided an even tougher alternative, with fibers stronger than cotton and naturally resistant to rot. It made excellent aprons and work shirts that stood up to constant abrasion and moisture. Then there was nettle cloth. Though prickly and painful to harvest, the processed fibers yielded a surprisingly soft, linen-like textile, perfect for undergarments and lighter tunics. Nothing was wasted in this system. Garments were rarely discarded. They were patched with whatever scraps were available, re-dyed to refresh faded colors, and repurposed over decades of use. The average peasant might own only 2 or 3 tunics, a pair of hose, and a cloak, but each item was a multi-purpose tool designed for specific tasks and seasons. Why did their clothing need to survive 12-hour workdays in all conditions? Because their economic survival depended on garments that wouldn't fail during critical labor periods. A torn tunic during harvest could mean lost wages. A leaky cloak during winter could mean illness and missed work days. This resourcefulness with textiles allowed them to endure conditions that would destroy modern clothing in weeks, creating garments that became personal armor against the elements and the demands of medieval life. What if the humblest fabric became the ultimate technological achievement of medieval dress? Wool served as the backbone of peasant clothing across Europe, but its quality varied dramatically. The finest grades remained out of reach, leaving peasants with coarse, itchy wool that felt rough against the skin. They used sheep's wool in its most basic form, often leaving the natural lanolin intact for added water resistance. This greasy, unrefined wool repelled light rain and mist effectively. The weaving process itself added to its durability. Weavers created a dense, almost felt-like fabric that trapped body heat while shedding moisture. For hoods and cloaks, they employed heavy fulling, beating and shrinking the wool in water. The result? Garments that could withstand downpours. A well-made cloak became nearly waterproof, a critical feature during long hours outdoors. Layering also played a key role. A thin undertunic, often linen or nettle cloth, absorbed sweat and reduced chafing. Over this, the wool outer layer shielded against wind, rain, and abrasion. In winter, peasants wore tunics with thicker weaves and added extra layers for insulation. In summer, lighter, more open weaves allowed airflow while still protecting from sun and scratches. What made wool the ultimate survival fabric? Its unique structure provided warmth even when wet. Its natural crimp created tiny air pockets that retained heat. Its durability meant a tunic could last through years of fieldwork. This humble material became their primary defense against Europe's unpredictable climate. From damp English winters to sharp alpine winds, how did peasants turn roadside weeds into wearable protection? When wool was scarce or too expensive, they turned to plants growing around them, transforming irritation into insulation through backbreaking labor. Nettle fibers had to be harvested carefully to avoid the plant's painful stings. Workers wore thick gloves or used tools to cut the stalks. Then came retting, soaking in water to break down the outer layers. After drying, the stalks were beaten with wooden mallets to separate the fibers from the woody core. The resulting cloth was surprisingly soft and had natural antibacterial properties, helping prevent infection from cuts and abrasions. Hemp offered another solution, growing quickly in poor soil. Its strong fibers made perfect aprons and work shirts. Unlike food crops, hemp could be cultivated on marginal land, accessible even to peasants with the poorest plots. Processing created textiles that often outlasted wool in consistently wet conditions, resisting mold and rot that could destroy woolen garments. But both plants demanded immense labor for minimal yield. A full day's work might produce only a few inches of cloth, yet the results were critical. Nettle for undergarments that breathed well, hemp for outer layers that withstood abuse. How did peasants turn stinging nettles into wearable clothing? Through painstaking harvesting, retting, and spinning, that turned irritation into protection. Medieval peasant clothing represents one of history's most ingenious adaptations to material constraints. Their approach emphasized maximizing utility, repurposing everything, and using locally available materials. These practices offer valuable lessons in sustainable living today. Next time you see a medieval illustration, look beyond the simple shapes. Recognize the sophisticated survival technology woven into every thread, the reinforced seams, the strategic patching, the seasonal adaptations. See how necessity bred innovation in fiber processing and garment construction. This was clothing designed not for poverty, but for enduring the relentless demands of pre-industrial life, through intelligent material use and relentless resourcefulness.